Lionel Messi scored a hat-trick tonight, his first ever at a World Cup. He tied the all-time World Cup scoring record. He dismantled Algeria in Kansas City with the kind of brilliance that has defined 2 decades of the beautiful game. And by any measure, it was one of the greatest individual performances in the history of this tournament. But tonight's story is not just about the goals. Tonight's story is about the moment in the first half that every neutral in that stadium saw, every camera in the building captured, and that the referee, supported by the VAR technology that FIFA spent billions promoting as the solution to every officiating controversy the sport has ever known, decided simply did not happen. Lionel Messi caught Issa Mandi high on the shin in the first half, with his own team trailing the pace of the match, and nobody did anything about it. What followed was a hat-trick, a record, a standing ovation, and a global social media explosion that split the football world directly down the middle. On one side, the hundreds of millions of fans who watched the greatest player of all time produce a performance for the ages and decided that tonight belonged purely to genius. On the other side, a growing chorus of voices from Algeria, from football analysts across Europe, from supporters organizations, and from people who have watched this tournament slowly accumulate controversies like a storm collecting clouds, who are asking one question with a volume that is only going to get louder. Would that challenge have gone unpunished if the player who committed it was not Lionel Messi? Subscribe to the channel right now and turn on notifications if you want to follow this story as it develops, because the incident itself is only the beginning of what makes tonight's event so significant. Let us be precise about what happened. In the first half of Argentina's opening match at the 2026 World Cup, played at Kansas City Stadium before a crowd that had come to witness history, Messi went into a challenge with Algerian defender Issa Mandi. His boot connected with Mandi's shin, high, the kind of contact that, under the rules of the game as they currently stand, carries at minimum a serious foul, and at maximum, depending on the force and the height of the contact, a potential red card, under the violent conduct provisions that FIFA itself has been emphasizing more heavily in this tournament than at any previous edition. Referee Shimon Marciniak did not stop play for a foul. The VAR team, watching every frame of every camera angle in real time, did not intervene. The game continued. Messi remained on the pitch. And 17 minutes into that same match, he opened the scoring with a trademark left-foot strike that sent the stadium into delirium. The reaction from Algeria was immediate and visceral. Their players protested to the referee in the immediate aftermath of the challenge. The Algerian bench reacted with the unmistakable body language of people who cannot believe what they just witnessed and are calculating in real time that there is nothing they can do about it. By the time Messi scored his first goal, the Algerian players knew they were competing not just against the defending world champions, but against something larger than the 11 men in front of them. That feeling is not new to teams that face Messi. But tonight it carried a weight that history lends it. Because this is not the first time this question has been asked about this player at this stage of the competition. It is not the first time a decision involving Lionel Messi at a World Cup has generated accusations of differential treatment. And it is not the first time that the combination of Messi, a critical match, and an officiating decision has produced a controversy that outlasted the match itself by days and weeks. If this pattern concerns you as a football fan, and it should concern every person who believes the laws of the game should apply equally regardless of the jersey number, this is the moment to subscribe to the channel. Because what adds a whole new dimension to tonight's controversy involves a name that has been at the center of this exact same debate for months: Cristiano Ronaldo. In November of last year, during a World Cup qualifying match between Ireland and Portugal in Dublin, Ronaldo drove his elbow into the back of defender Dara O'Shea. The challenge was initially punished with a yellow card. VAR upgraded the decision to a red card after review. Under FIFA's own disciplinary code, violent conduct of that nature carries a mandatory minimum 3-match suspension. By the letter of the law, Ronaldo should have missed Portugal's final qualifying match and their first 2 games at the 2026 World Cup. FIFA's disciplinary committee met. Their verdict stunned the football world. The 3-match ban was reduced to 1. The remaining 2 matches were suspended under a 1-year probationary period. Their official reasoning centered on the fact that it was Ronaldo's first international red card in a career spanning 226 matches for Portugal. A clean record, they argued, mitigated the punishment. Multiple nations immediately began exploring whether the decision could be legally challenged. Analysts across the sport described it as an institution bending its own rules to protect its most commercially valuable asset. The timing could not have been more damaging for FIFA's credibility. Months before the tournament began, the governing body had already answered the question of whether its biggest stars were subject to the same disciplinary standards as everyone else. It had answered that question with a verdict that said clearly and in writing that they were not. And now, tonight, in Kansas City, the same question arrived from a different angle. Not from a disciplinary committee deliberating in a conference room, from a split-second officiating decision in the 41st minute of a World Cup match, under the eyes of thousands of people in the stadium, millions watching on television, and a VAR system that FIFA has spent years and billions of dollars promoting as the definitive answer to refereeing controversy. The VAR let it slide. Perhaps there is an entirely legitimate technical explanation for why the challenge did not meet the threshold for intervention. Perhaps the angle was ambiguous. Perhaps the contact was lighter than it appeared from the primary camera feed. Perhaps every frame was reviewed with exactly the same scrutiny that would have been applied to any other player in any other match. Perhaps the decision was correct in every technical sense, and the controversy is nothing more than the natural frustration of an Algerian team that lost 3 goals to one of the greatest players in history. Perhaps, but perhaps is a very uncomfortable word when you're an Algerian footballer who just watched a challenge on your teammate go unpunished in a World Cup match worth everything. What makes tonight's event so layered is the contrast with decisions that have been made elsewhere in this tournament. The opening match between Mexico and South Africa produced 3 red cards. One of them, the decision to dismiss South Africa's Themba Zwane for violent conduct after his hand caught a Mexican player's face, was described by multiple respected analysts as a harsh call. The referee reached for the most severe sanction available, supported by VAR, for a contact that many experts said did not clearly meet the violent conduct threshold. In the same tournament, under the same referee guidelines, a challenge on a World Cup defender that connected high on the shin went completely unpunished. One decision produced a red card, the other produced nothing. The difference between them was not the clarity of the contact. The difference was the identity of the player who made it. That observation is uncomfortable. It is the kind of observation that organizations like FIFA prefer to dismiss as speculation and emotional reaction rather than engage with directly. But it is an observation that is being made tonight not by fringe voices, but by mainstream analysts, by former professional players, and by the kind of calm, evidence-based football observers whose opinions carry genuine weight in the sport. The Ronaldo precedent matters here. When an institution demonstrates through its own formal disciplinary process that its biggest names operate under different rules than everyone else, it removes the benefit of the doubt from every subsequent decision that involves those same names. It creates a framework of suspicion that attaches itself to every marginal call, every VAR non-intervention, every moment where the evidence was ambiguous enough to go either way. And when that institution is also the one that took the decision to award its inaugural Peace Prize to the sitting president of its host nation, that has faced accusations of bending its commercial interests into every structural decision about this tournament, and that has responded to the crisis of empty seats and grounded team planes and deported referees with statements rather than accountability, the framework of suspicion has already been constructed. Tonight, Lionel Messi scored a hat-trick that tied the all-time World Cup scoring record. He now stands level with Miroslav Klose on 16 goals, needing one more to stand alone at the summit of the most celebrated individual achievement the tournament offers. It was a performance that deserved celebration without qualification. The first goal, a left-foot strike of pure instinct from outside the area, was the kind of moment that reminds you why this man has been the subject of conversation for 20 years. The second, a composed tap-in after a spilled save, was opportunism at the highest level. The third, a curling low finish into the bottom corner that sent the stadium into a frenzy, was a throwback to his best years in a season where many had begun to wonder whether those years were behind him. He is still here. He is still extraordinary, and he is still, at 38 years old, capable of changing the outcome of the biggest football tournament on the planet single-handedly. But football is not just about what the greatest player does on the pitch. It is also about whether the framework that governs his participation in the sport applies to him with the same consistency it applies to everyone else. Tonight, that framework was tested. And the people inside Kansas City Stadium, who watched Issa Mandi take a boot to the shin, looked up at the VAR screen waiting for a review that never came, and then watched the player who committed the challenge score 3 goals in the same match, are entitled to ask whether the answer they got was the one they deserved. The argument that will follow this tournament long after the trophy is lifted is not whether Messi is the greatest player who ever lived. That argument was settled years ago in the minds of most people who love this sport. The argument is whether the institution that governs the sport he plays in is capable of treating him exactly like everyone else when it matters most. Tonight, in Kansas City, that question did not get answered. It got louder.